Home heating and cooling installation. Our experience going green with a heat pump and propane. In this video, I'm going to show you how we turned our old inefficient heating and cooling system into a modern, very efficient, and very green heating and cooling system. This is not a how-to video. We hired pros, but I carefully documented their daily progress so you can see what to expect if you decide to install a similar system. But first, let me show you why we did this upgrade. Our old system. Our old cooling system consisted of a few wall air conditioners. They helped cool parts of the house in the summer, but they couldn't cool our entire home. They were also very loud and used a lot of electricity. Our heating system consisted of an old oil boiler. When I say old, it was like 40 years old. Our home inspector and all of the pros we talked with recommended not putting any money into it, that replacing it would be the best option. The oil boiler heated water and spread it throughout the house through baseboards. This old oil boiler also provided hot water for bathing and faucets. Unfortunately, it didn't provide us with much hot water. The water would come out very hot at first, then a few minutes later, it would be cooler, then it would eventually come out cold. It also couldn't provide enough hot water to take a bath. Not to mention, the old oil boiler seemed to be going through oil very quickly. In addition, we had an oil tank in our basement that was leaking. It needed to be removed before it got worse and caused some serious issues. How we decided on a replacement system. We had 4 HVAC companies come to our home and pitch us some solutions for our home heating and cooling needs. Over and over, we learned the following information from the people we met. A heat pump is the most energy efficient way to heat and cool a home. It uses electricity that doesn't fluctuate as much as the price of fossil fuels. It's also better for the environment because it produces less greenhouse gas emissions. Second, because we live in an area that sometimes reaches very low temperatures, the heat pump would still require a backup fossil fuel system that would have to run on really cold days. Fortunately though, new heat pump systems can operate efficiently at lower temperatures than older heat pumps could. So knowing the options, the cost involved, we went with a combination system of a heat pump for heating and air conditioning and a propane combi system that would provide our on-demand hot water needs and would occasionally have to heat our home on very cold days. Now let me walk you through the install. On day 1 of the install, the propane company dropped off 2 propane tanks and set them up on blocks near the side of our house, but not right up against it. In the basement, they also ran a supply line. I apologize if I get any of these terms wrong. I'm not a pro. Remember, this isn't a how-to video. A connector was also installed on the outside of my home that would eventually bring the propane into my basement. It was connected to the indoor supply line, which was pressurized and capped, but nothing was hooked up to the propane tanks yet. A town inspector had to first approve the setup and make sure that there were no leaks. I believe this is called a pressure test. Fortunately, days later, the inspector came to my house and the pressure test passed inspection. Day 2 of the install. On day 2 of the install, the company removed our old oil boiler and the excess parts and pipes. It was not an easy task moving the heavy oil boiler up my basement stairs, but 3 guys did it. It was filthy, by the way, probably not serviced properly. They also closed up the old oil boiler exhaust hole that was connected to my chimney. In addition, the electrician from the company installed new breakers in my electric panel and ran wires from the garage to the basement through some piping. This power will be used for the propane boiler and additional wiring that will eventually be used for the heat pump. The guys also installed 2 pipes that went from the new propane boiler to outside of the house. One pipe was for intaking air, and the other pipe was for venting exhaust gases outside. The new ultra high efficiency propane boiler was quite small compared to the oil boiler. I was impressed how it was hung on a wood wall that the guys built. All of the copper pipes neatly connected to the new boiler. This propane boiler would heat our home using our existing baseboards that the oil boiler once used. This new system also provides on-demand hot water for bathing and for our faucets. For now, the propane boiler would be controlled by our old thermostats. I would say that we were without heat for about 4 or 5 hours while they got rid of the old boiler and turned the new one on, but it was quite tolerable on that December day. In addition, a plumber had to cut into our existing drain pipe so that a pump could get rid of condensation coming from the boiler. The water would get to the drain through a clear tube. For the time being, our home's heat and hot water would strictly come from the propane system until the heat pump was installed. The two propane tanks were obviously now connected to the line going into our house to feed the boiler fuel. The electrician also said he grounded the propane tanks, an important safety measure. We could monitor our fuel usage through an app called Nevo. Both tanks were also filled to a little over 80% by this point. I was told that propane tanks are only filled to 80% to allow for contraction and expansion of the gas due to changing temperatures. That's the way I understood it anyway. On this day, we were also informed that our heat pump was going to be downsized from a 4-ton unit to a 3-ton unit, and we were told that a 4-ton unit was too much for our house and would freeze up a lot in the summer when cooling our home. We had to trust the company that this was the right decision. Day 3 of the install. On day 3 of the install, holes were cut into our floors all around our house. Vents would be placed into these holes that were eventually going to be connected to ductwork. The bigger vents were for returns, air brought back into the heat pump's blower. The smaller vents were supplies, where warm air would come out to heat the house. An electrician also installed an electrical outlet, switch, and wires for the heat pump's air handler to use. Day 4 of the install. On day 4 of the install, an electrician set up power that would eventually be connected to the heat pump's outdoor condenser. Ductwork was also beginning to be put in, as you can see when I lift up one of the vents. The ductwork consists of sheet metal, I believe, that is wrapped in bubble duct insulation and taped up. There are main supply and return ducts. Then feeding off of these main ducts are flexible ducts that go to the rooms around the house. The crew spent most of day 4 building the main ducts, insulating and then taping them. By the way, our ductwork was done in the basement, but sometimes it's done in the attic. At this point, I also installed a combination carbon monoxide and propane gas detector in our basement. In fact, I placed many detectors all over our house. If we have a gas leak, a carbon monoxide leak, or a fire, I want to know about it right away for the safety of my family. The air handler contains an air filter. The guys told me to rinse it off every 3 months. I do wonder if I should buy thicker filters from a store. I'm not sure how good these washable filters are. Let me know in the comments section if you know the answer to this. Day 5 of the install. On day 5 of the install, the old oil tank was drained and cut open to remove the sludge inside of it. It was gross. I'm glad I went with propane. I no longer want to store a large oil tank in my basement. The guys lifted it out of my house up the stairs. Not an easy task. The pipes that ran down to the oil tank were also removed. The holes were filled with some sort of foam that expanded quite a bit as it dried. All of the remaining ductwork was finished as well on this day. On the outside of my house, the condenser was bolted to a stand with rocks underneath it. The power cable was connected to the unit. So were additional pipes that go to the air handler in my basement. There's apparently condensation that can occur in the air handler that an additional pump will carry through a clear tube to my drain pipe. Soon enough, the heat pump system was turned on. The thermostat can be controlled by an app called Ecobee, by the way, which is quite handy. Oh, and I almost forgot to mention, the local inspector came back for a final inspection and everything passed. It's not a super thorough inspection, but it made us feel good that it was looked over. Results. So are we happy we got rid of our old oil boiler and leaking oil tank? The answer is a big yes. We really had to. Was switching to a heat pump system with a backup propane boiler and installing ductwork worth the investment? Only time will tell. I can tell you that since the heat pump was turned on, we were using very little propane. Our propane tank was at 71% 4 days ago. It's still at 71%. That's good news as propane is more expensive than electricity. We certainly love the heat pump's rebates and tax credit. That made a huge difference in our decision to buy one. We also love that we will now have air conditioning in the summer using the heat pump that will cool the entire house. In addition, I can confirm that when the heat pump is running, it's very quiet. It's like a box fan running when you're outside. We don't hear it at all in our house, which is great. I also tested the hot water created by the on-demand propane boiler. So far, it works great. We have plenty of hot water for multiple showers and have had no problem filling a tub full of hot water. This should be cheaper than heating up a large tank of water. On-demand systems will save money because they're running less. They run only when you need them. So far we are liking this new heating system. We hope that all of the components of this new system last for many years. That's something only time will reveal. I think it will be important for longevity to get this equipment serviced yearly. Well, I hope that you found this video helpful. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.